Hi guys, and welcome to a very different type of video, but it felt right to make it because it is the Streamer Showdown this weekend. So I wanted to do a quick video to firstly walk you through my squad of the players I drafted during Thursday night's stream, which you're going to be seeing, of course, in action tonight and tomorrow over on Twitch, link in the description, as well as to just sort of talk to you a little bit about what the Streamer Showdown is if you're not already aware of that. Hey, maybe it'll pique your interest, so pay attention for a little bit. So, for the uninitiated, the FM Streamer Showdown is essentially what it says on the tin. It is a streaming competition between different FM streamers and content creators and whatnot, where we each get a set of rules to draft a team using FM Fantasy Draft, and we had, in this particular case, £500 million to draft a team of players, a squad of 18 from the 5 major leagues. So the Premier League, Bundesliga, Serie A, Ligue 1, and of course, La Liga. So yeah, that's what we went and did. Now, of course, with the draft, that means if someone takes a player that you want, you are no longer able to sign him. We only had to pick one goalkeeper, and as you can see from the screen right now, that is exactly what I chose to do. A risk, to be sure, but goalkeeping injuries are rare, so I'm kind of hoping we just get away with it. And we do have the lemon wipe, which we can use to reset our injuries if we should want to. So I feel like we're basically covered. The only time it could really bite me is the fact that, say we got a goalkeeping injury in the second minute of the game or something, and then you end up with an outfield player in goal for 90 minutes. It's not ideal, but I feel like we're going to run the risk because we kind of had to for some reasons I'll explain in a minute. So that's basically the gist of things. It's going on tonight at 7 p.m. over on Twitch, and then tomorrow the same thing, but with the knockouts and whatnot. You'll get the gist very quickly once you step on over. So all I'm going to do now is basically walk you through my team, give you an idea of what I plan to try and do during the showdown, and try is the optimum word here because it's very normally, it goes off course very, very quickly normally. So this won't be in order of which I pick the players, although I will give you some insight into what happened with that as well. We're just going to go through the squad. I'll show you what I've got. Other creators in the tournament will, of course, be posting similar videos, so do go check those out as well if you want more insight into what other people are doing. But let's just jump in. So goalkeeper, we got Salvatore Sirigu. There are much better goalkeepers in the game that we could have got. Take nothing away from that. Absolutely true. In fact, in the past, I have splashed huge money on big money goalkeepers, and I had a few on my list that I was potentially going to go after. We're talking in the 40-50 million pound range, but it is a lot to spend on a goalkeeper. It really, really is. And unfortunately, we got a massive wrench thrown in our way when a slight graphical glitch during the draft meant that essentially my pick was forfeited. But due to the way the FM draft works this year, it doesn't let you pass your pick on to the end. It will auto pick for you. The game chose Tony Kroos for £47 million, which completely sort of threw away some of the ideas we had to go with, and we had to try to make some cost-cutting measures elsewhere in the squad. And it's not because Tony Kroos isn't an excellent player, it's just that it was my second pick, and I just picked up a guy directly in the position that he was going to play in anyway. So, not ideal. He's essentially the most expensive mascot in the history of football. I'm sure we'll find a place to put him in anyway, but it meant cost-cutting was needed elsewhere. And Sirigu, for £18 million, is pretty bloody good as a sweeper keeper. Lacks a little bit in the speed area, but you don't need that to be amazing. And the fact is, I think he'll do a solid job for us for £18 million, and we had to pull back that money somewhere. So, onto the defence. On the right-hand side, we have Danny Carvajal, because, really, he was available at the end of the day, and I felt like a player like Carvajal is exactly what we needed in that role. Now, he wasn't actually our first choice. We picked him up later in the draft when we realised we had a bit more money than we thought we did. Great stamina, great physicality, solid attributes just across the board for the role. Obviously, there are better players in that role, but you've got to build a squad, not just an individual player. So Danny Carvajal will probably end up starting right back for us, costing £32.5 million, by the way. Next up is Daniel Vaz, who will, of course, play underneath him. He is unlikely to start any games, but for 17 million, once again, we found ourselves with a little bit of spare cash towards the end. And the main reason is, with us playing a 4-4-2, hopefully, in this, we wanted someone who could cover both positions, and Vass does that in easy terms. So that's why we brought him in. £17 million, a solid backup. And to add on to that as well, we also have Johnny, who can play in both of the fullback spots, but is predominantly right-footed. So once again, absolutely stacked for options in those positions, but he can cover both sides. Defensively, I think we've got great depth, and you know, that was one of the positions that I found we got a lot of injuries in last time we did the draft, so it felt like a sensible option for us here. Although, as much as he can play on the left-hand side, he is weak on his left foot, so really we only wanted to operate here. But it cost £24 million, so again, a lot of money's been put into that part of the team. Over on the left-hand side of the defence, we were torn between trying to go for Jordi Alba at £44 million, or settling slightly deeper and going for Nacho Monreal. Despite not being the youngest anymore, he's not got that bad physicals. Considering he's not as quick as maybe Jordi Alba would have been, obviously, but he's very solid across the technicals, great in the tackle, and just a really solid option for less than half the price. And at that point, I think we had to make the right pragmatic decision to save a little bit of the money that we may have lost by having Tony Kroos in the team. So for £20 million, hard to say no. And then to back him up, we have an absolute bargain in Kevin Rodriguez, £3.2 million. it was impossible not to at that point. I had a few bargain picks picked out, and he was very much that player. For £3.2 million, I'm certain he was the cheapest player we picked in the entire draft, but he is not as good as Monreal in some areas, particularly tackling, but at the end of the day, he'll certainly be able to do a job off the bench for us. And I mean, worst case scenario, he could potentially even cover up here, but I wouldn't want him to. In the middle of our defence, we have Presnel Kimpembe. I had my eye on 3 players, essentially, for the centre of my defence. Kimpembe was indeed one of them. Just with that amazing tackling, marking, and heading. Simple stuff. He's not super slow either. 6'2", decent jumping reach, great aggression and bravery. Just an all-round excellent defender. And for £38 million, I was pretty pleased to bring him in. Were there more expensive defending options? Yes, Van Dijk and whatnot. And he's definitely better. But for £38 million, Kimpembe definitely suits what I want to do with this tactic. So he was one of my first picks. And to go alongside him, we've got Jose Jimenez coming in at £47 million. So we really have splashed out in that centre-back pairing. Again, jumping reach not spectacular, so we are going to have to be careful with that. But again, just excellent attributes for the role that he's going to play for us. And I think that the Kimpembe and Jimenez partnership could definitely be quite fruitful for us. That's the hope anyway. I think there's some areas where we could get caught out. Also, with Jimenez being good on both feet, that really will help us with a bit more versatility, and that's always important. And lastly, sort of defensively, I'll count him in here anyway though because he shows up, is Leander Dendoncker, who is available for £4.8 million. The main reason for Dendoncker is, he's not going to start for us, obviously. But 6'2", solid across the board for that kind of price. He's the ultimate backup player, particularly as he can do a job in any of these 3 positions. Now, obviously, this is kind of obsolete for us because of the 4-4-2, but you never know. Were we to change things, he could slot straight in there, along with some other players you'll see in a minute. But he could cover for the box-to-box role we're going to use, potentially. Not the best in terms of playmaker, though. He's got decent passing, vision just lacking a little bit. The main thing though is he could cover centre-back for us should we need him to, or he can cover in the midfield. It's unlikely he's going to be needed there though, let's face it, given some of the other players that we've got. Moving into the midfield now is Toni Kroos. He's not as bad as I thought he was. My main issue with Toni Kroos, and the reason I wasn't interested in the first place, is firstly, 47 million was a lot because I felt we could get better options in that position for the same kind of prices, or cheaper. It was his physicals, and actually he's not as slow as I thought he was going to be, and his stamina's still actually fairly solid, so he may be a better option than I thought he would. Good on both feet, incredible passing and vision. It's hard to deny that he's an outstanding footballer, and not only that, he's pretty damn solid from set pieces too. His free kicks are at 14, but those corners, very, very nice indeed, could definitely allow us a lot of options there, and he'll do a nice job in the midfield for us. So I think there's no way that he can't play. It was just frustrating because I didn't get to pick him myself. Because my actual original pick was Frankie de Jong at £28 million. And you can see why I maybe would have gone for Frankie over someone like Toni Kroos, because £20 million is a huge difference. And, I love me a bit of Frankie. So an ideal player for that deep line playmaker role. Even has some solid tackling on him. Can sit even deeper and play as a regista. Not that I would be doing that this year, but you never know should the opportunity provide itself. It's an excellent choice to have either Kroos or de Jong. That's quite a pairing of players to have at your disposal, quite frankly. Whether they both get in the team at the same time, I don't know. I'm not sure Frankie would be able to cover the box-to-box role so well, particularly not when you see who I've actually got for that role. But for 28 million, you can't say no. My first pick as well. Because going alongside them in that midfield is Adrien Rabiot at 36 million. He was one of the players I had earmarked for this role, and I believe he is one of the best box-to-box midfielders that you can get. Outside of maybe someone like N'Golo Kante, who is inordinately more expensive. He's got great physicals. He can bob up and down there. He's got great long shots, great passing, great tackling. He's just an absolute dynamo in the middle of midfield. I'm hoping him, alongside either Kroos or, of course, our boy Frankie de Jong, could cause some serious issues for people as a midfield pairing, and particularly with the fact that we've got options for rotation, which some other people may not have. We've lucked into that completely, though, of course. But the fact that he was still available that deep into the draft was incredibly surprising, so I had to pick him up when the opportunity presented itself. Out on the left-hand side, we have Thomas Lemar. He's very good, actually. Now, obviously, we'll be playing him slightly deeper as a result of the current idea for the 4-4-2, but he just ticks the boxes. Great pace and acceleration. Could be faster, but still solid. Good passing. Good off the ball, which is always important for me. Good crossing and dribbling and an excellent first touch with wonderful technique. Flair's pretty good as well, which is going to help him get past a few people. Great left foot. He's no doubt going to be our starting player in that role. And for 27 million, that is pretty good for a player like Thomas Lemar. And on the right-hand side, we have Jadon Sancho, who frankly could cover the left-hand side too, were it to be an issue. He was still available in the 14th round. Now, 46 million is a lot, but when we had that money and it got to the 14th round of the draft, it seemed like an imperative that we should get someone like Jadon Sancho. He adds that little bit of extra acceleration and pace and pure just lightning speed to get past people. And frankly, finishing a 14 ain't bad either. With 15 composure, does the job definitely with wonderful dribbling. I could see him going past weaker or tired fullbacks later on in games, and that could definitely do us a lot of favours, as with this tactical approach, we do rely a lot on those wingers bombing forward and doing massive things for us. And him and Lemar, I really hope, can provide some extremely good service to the strikers that we've got, particularly with the service they're going to get from our midfield pairing. And to add into that, we also have Javaro Dilrosun. I'm probably pronouncing his name wrong. I do apologize. For me, one of the biggest sleeper picks of this tournament. He is very good for £9 million. I was concerned that I would maybe not be able to get him, but nobody picked him up. And I realized that he's definitely not on the level of some of the other players, but he matches them a lot of the ways in physicality, does like a little bit of strength. Great crossing and dribbling, first touch is solid. Passing lets him down a little bit, but he's still got a lot of the bare attributes that you'd want out of a winger. And he'll be a great backup to Tom Lamar, I feel like. And I mean, technically, he could do a job on the right-hand side, but I wouldn't want him to with his weak right foot. It wouldn't really work that well. But for £9 million, just to fill out that bench with some really solid options that we could bring on late in games, say we've got ourselves in front and it's looking comfortable, rest out people for some next games, Dilrosun will definitely hold down the fort without weakening us too much, and that's why I was determined to bring him in for £9 million. He is one of my favourite gems so far, but there's one more player further up the pitch you're going to see who I believe could genuinely be one of the picks of the whole thing if he gets enough game time, but I just don't know. As last up, we go to our strikers. Now with a 4-4-2, you're going to need two strong strikers. My original plan was to try and get someone like Erling Haaland, but sadly he went. I had other bids potentially on the table. I was going to get Milinkovic-Savic, obviously not as a striker. He was one of my first midfield picks. Probably would have been the pick I would have got actually potentially instead of Toni Kroos, were that not to have happened. But regardless, you can't cry over it now. Icardi, solid physicals. He's not super fast, but he's fast enough for what I want him to do. Great anticipation and composure as well. Excellent off the ball to go with it as well, which is super important for making him those runs. Great finishing, great heading, great technique. We had him a couple of seasons ago on Streamer Showdown, and he banged, I think, 11 goals for us, despite not even being my first choice striker at the time. I think I started with Lukaku and Icardi, and Lukaku couldn't score to save his life. Icardi, however, was banging them in, so I'm hoping with a strike partner this time around, he can continue that fruitful run and share the goals out a little bit. But he did set us back £48 million, so spending money in the right areas for the strike force I felt was important. We needed good strikers. We could have gone for the Ronaldos, the Messis, the Lewandowskis, but Lewandowski is £90 million, and for me, he just isn't £40 million better in terms of his attributes compared to someone like Icardi. That I couldn't justify it. And no one did, as far as I know. Because alongside him, we have Timo Werner. Now, ignore his form in real life. It sucks. He's not done well for Chelsea in real life so far. Hopefully he'll turn it around. But he's got that explosive pace that will go quite nicely alongside Icardi. Great work rate as well. Excellent finishing of 16. He does like a little... Some of his mentals aren't anywhere near as good as Icardi, but he does still have good off the ball. Composure might let him down slightly, so hopefully the chances will maybe be presented to Icardi instead of him. Great on penalties as well, should that ever be a thing that comes up, which, let's face it, it probably will. Great on both feet as well. Likes to go around the goalkeeper. He's got that pace to get past people. I think a front line of Icardi and Werner could genuinely generate us a lot of goals when you look at who's going to be providing them. And last but not least is one of my sort of favourite picks of the entire bunch. It's Alexander Isak, or Isak. Swedish striker. 6'3", yet he possesses 16 pace and 17 acceleration. So he's got that aerial presence, whilst at the same time being able to stretch teams in behind. I always wanted to make sure that we had a solid option off the bench in case we got injuries or just to freshen up fitness later in the game. And he covers those bases brilliantly. Great dribbling, 14 finishing. It's not the highest, but what do you expect for £9 million? Great technique as well. Off the ball is excellent. Composure and decisions are fine. Anticipation is solid. Great physicals as well. To be only 20 and be this good is actually ludicrous. 6'3", to be that fast. He has sort of Haaland-esque attributes about him as well. For £9 million, again, for me, one of the gems that we picked up, and hopefully that is what's going to save us. Picking up people like him and Dilrosun, as well as Kevin Rodriguez, kind of allowed us to recover from the unfortunate situation with Toni Kroos, and I think we've come out of it with I'm pleased with the draft. I think that's what matters the most to me, is I'm pleased with it. And I guess, well, then again, I'm always a little bit pleased with our draft, so that doesn't really tell you much about it. But that's kind of the squad we're going to be going with. Expect to see us play a 4-4-2, but should things start to go tits up, we may even switch over to the Bolton tactic. I don't know how well that will work against human players, though. I've got to be honest with you. So, yeah, tonight, 6:45 my stream will start. The others I'm sure will be on around about the same time. Do head over if you fancy watching this. It's always a good laugh, quite frankly. That's the main thing. It is just a good laugh. And yeah, maybe we'll be bottom, maybe we'll be top. It won't really matter, though, because it's a Sunday game. So, I will see you guys later on, hopefully. Hold your gun. Capybara. Bye-bye.